Kendall Scudder, chairman of the Texas Democratic Party. Thank you so much and welcome back to Ion Politics.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Jack.
You bet. So let's talk about the victory for State Representative James Talarico in the Democratic primary for U.S. Senate over Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. What do you make of this victory, and what does it say about what's going to happen in November, at least from what we can expect from the Democrats?
Look, it was a hard fought win, and we have record breaking turnout in our Democratic primary this year. For the first time in over 20 years, Democrats have outvoted Republicans, and it's because of how great both of our candidates were in this primary. And so, huge respect to Jasmine Crockett and the work that she's put in, holding the line in Congress. I know Talarico will serve our party well as the nominee. What I think that it means is that we can continue to see this surge of turnout across the state, and Republicans should be nervous because I think that all the stars are aligning. This could potentially be the year that Democrats are able to pull an upset in Texas.
Why do you think that? And not only that, but this is a line that we've heard before from Democrats. So what do you think is different about this year than in past years, including 2018, which was also a Trump midterm?
Well, and fair enough. And I'm not sitting here telling you that I think we're going to run the table, but it does take several cycles for us to be able to build this. And the trend line speaks for itself. Sure, we fell back in the last election, but if you look at where the Democrats have trended in the state over the last 10 years, we're still heading in the right direction. That mixed with having a candidate that right now is polling beating Ken Paxton and John Cornyn in some polls that we've seen are within the margin of error, and Donald Trump being a wildly unpopular president, Governor Abbott being a wildly unpopular governor. I think all of these items starting to mix together shows that there's some signs of life here in the Democratic Party in Texas, and I think down ballot we have some phenomenal opportunities too. For the first time since 1972, we've fielded a candidate for every state and federal office in Texas, and that means that we're going to have Democrats all across the field knocking on doors and going into communities to recruit voters, paired with another piece that we've just rolled out a $30 million coordinated campaign, Texas Together with our party, where we are all going to be doing this together on one team, one coordinated effort instead of a bunch of splintered coordinated efforts across the state. We've never done that as a party. So I just think there's a whole lot of things lining up for us, and it's going to lead to some good successes. If we manage to fall short this year, we're going to get up and keep going because this is a long-term plan, not just right in front of us. But I do genuinely think that this year there's a viable opportunity here.
So let's talk. You brought up money for a little bit, and I'm wondering, are you expecting the Senate Democratic campaign committee from Washington pour a lot of money into this race to help Talarico go up against either Senator Cornyn or Ken Paxton?
They haven't come in so far. We're not sitting around and waiting for them to. Whether they do or they don't, our plans kind of remain the same, that we are building, organizing infrastructure in 254 counties around the state. They tend to come in and drop a bunch of money in ads, and sure, that's valuable. But as a party, what we're interested in is long-term building for political power in the state. So if they come in, great. If they don't, that's fine too. I think that we can create a path here ourselves.
Who would Democrats rather run against as far as Republicans, Paxton or Cornyn?
I don't think it matters who we want to run against. I think that Republican primaries are where incumbents go to die, or Republican primary runoffs are where incumbents go to die. John Cornyn didn't survive in that runoff. And so we'll be running against Ken Paxton. I feel pretty confident about it. I think I told you that about a year ago, that that's where I think that this is going. John Cornyn spent $60 million to muster 42% of the vote. The guy's not going to be able to pull it across. And even if he did, no one in Texas's life is better because John Cornyn was in office. Our schools are worse off. Our communities are less safe. Our taxes are higher. John Cornyn has not delivered anything for the people of Texas. So whether it's John Cornyn or it's certified garbage person Ken Paxton, we're going to be fine.
So let me ask you about Talarico's message. And I know that Democrats have been searching, certainly last year, for the right message to go up against President Trump and the Republicans. And what we saw with Representative Talarico is really trying to attract disaffected Republicans, independents into what he called a big tent with Democrats for working people and, really sharply criticizing billionaires. Do you think this is a winning message for Democrats nationwide?
Yeah, I mean, does it sound familiar? I mean, you and I have had these conversations for a while as well. This is the trend that our party, particularly this next generation of leaders, are trying to take our party, where we kind of get back to our roots, where we are unapologetically on the side of working class people, taking on whatever billionaire, whatever banker, whatever bootlicking bastard we need to make sure the little guy gets their seat at the table. And I think James Talarico is aligned with that message of unapologetically fighting for people who are struggling right now. It shouldn't be a luxury to be able to put soccer cleats on your kid. And right now, the economy that we're in is built so that rich people can treat the government as their own personal feeding trough, and the rest of us are stuck at the bottom, groveling for crumbs and turning over our tax dollars for their corporate socialism. And so I'm just saying, I think that James Talarico gets it, that this fight is about top versus bottom, and we're building a working class movement in every corner of the state.
And do you still think it's going to be an uphill climb for Talarico and other Democrats statewide? For example, Gina Hinojosa won outright last night in a very crowded primary. Do you think it's still going to be an uphill climb for Democrats this fall?
I mean, it's always an uphill climb for Democrats in Texas, okay? This is just the hand we've been dealt, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. What it means is that we have to work together, do things differently, and act as one unified voice. Greg Abbott is shockingly unpopular. We have seen polls that have been coming out proving that. And it shocked a lot of people. I will tell you, I wasn't very shocked, and I don't think many Democrats were, because the guy made an effort to privatize our public schools through a school voucher program, not because people in Texas wanted it, but because some East Coast sugar daddy gave him $13 million to do it. He sold us out, and he's bungled every crisis that's ever been laid at his feet. So I think that there's a real opportunity, and there's a cap to how much his $100 million can help him. If we learned anything from the SD9 election last month, it's that even when you're outspent 5 to 1, 10 to 1, sometimes that money doesn't translate into you getting more votes. So they better be worried, because we are coming for them. And we are not going to give you a pass just because you're sitting on a pile of cash.
Democrats, as you mentioned, had a good turnout for early voting. And what do you attribute that to? Was there anything specific? Was it just the Senate race? Was it, people are not happy with the direction that the country is going right now, a combination of things? And how do you take that and continue through November?
It's always a combination of things, but I don't think you can just lay it at the feet of the Senate race. The Republicans had three candidates for Senate who spent a combined $80 million, where we had two that spent 20. And so it's not necessarily just that we had a Senate race that was highly contentious. Maybe it's that people actually wanted to vote for our candidates and nobody actually wants to vote for theirs. I think that's a contributing factor. But writ large, people are upset with the direction that this country is taken. For the first time in American history, the richest people in this country now pay a lower tax rate than the poorest. And so, yeah, I think the average guy on the street is pretty pissed off right now at the Texas and federal government, because no one seems to be advocating for him right now. And so I think that that is a huge contributing factor to why people are so motivated to vote. I'll make one more point, though, Jack. It's not enough just to say you've got to vote against them. It's an obligation of Talarico and Hinojosa and every candidate we have on our ballot to give people something to vote for. The reason we are 47th in the country in voter turnout is because voters have told us that our message of "those guys suck" isn't worth showing up and voting for. And so we have to put together proposals and plans of what we are actually going to be delivering to people, not talking about preserving Social Security, but talking about expanding Social Security, not talking about making sure people see a doctor when they're sick, but making sure people get to see a doctor before they get sick, and showing people that we unapologetically stand on their side with policies that are going to advance them down the field.
Wanted to ask you my last question just about the voting issues that we saw in Dallas County last night. It was also in Williamson County, north of Austin last night. So, what do you make of what happened? Obviously, there was a lot of confusion all day in Dallas County because, unlike years past, where they could vote in voting centers, just like they did in early voting, they could not do that on election day in Dallas County. They had to go back to their precincts. People didn't know where to go. And so then there was this extension of the vote for Democrats. And then the Texas Supreme Court came in and stayed that. And so now there's this question of, all right, well, what happens to all the people who were in line after 7 p.m.? Those votes are being set aside. So, what's your thought about all this?
We have been warning Republican leadership since September that this was going to happen. We have been consistently trying to call meetings to get joint primaries put on the books in all of these counties. Republicans, peddling election conspiracy theories, have refused to participate in that. So, this is something that they have been completely warned that this was going to happen, and it did. And now they're acting shocked that it happened. It is incompetence to a shocking degree, but it just continues to perpetuate what they have constantly done, which is they are not interested in government actually working. They're not interested in running an efficient election, which they absolutely had the opportunity to. Instead, they're interested in beating their chests, peddling in election conspiracy theories, and trying to drive up the blood pressure of their base. That's more important than making sure that our government, our system of government works. And it's pretty gross. I think Alan West should be ashamed of himself. I think that all these Republican leaders that have put their own personal politics above us having a functioning democracy, they should be run out of office because they clearly are putting themselves above our country. It's just gross.
All right, we will leave it there. Kendall Scudder, chairman of the Texas Democratic Party. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate it.